Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to another episode of The Sap. As always, it's your boy, Dave Neal. I'm joined on the roof of this building today by my co-host, Tasha Marie Courtney, and our returning guest, David Luneau. He's a activist and lawyer out here in sunny Los Angeles. This is a long episode. We talk a lot about politics, progressive issues. We talk a lot about communicating with people of different political parties. I know this isn't easy. This is probably why it's a long episode, because there's a lot of things to discuss when it comes to trying to get to the common denominator, trying to agree on certain things, and realizing that we have more things in common than differences within our country. So we talk a lot about that. If you're here for the part where we talk about Bachelor contestants Becca and Garrett, there's going to be a time code in the description where you can actually just click on that time code, and it'll take you right to that part of the discussion if you don't want to stick around for the whole episode. In that discussion, we talk about, is it possible, and leave a comment below and let me know, is it possible for you to be in a loving relationship with someone who has completely different political thoughts than you, in a different political party, different views, this and that? We talk all about that because, as you guys might know, Becca and Garrett, members of the Bachelor Nation community, have recently broken up from their 2-year engagement. I would say mainly because of different political ideologies. So we wonder if is social media one of the reasons to blame for people's differences being brought to the the face of public knowledge. You can't be new to if you're a new contestant on The Bachelorette or a new member of SNL or anything in the public eye. Your political history gets dug up, and we wonder, can we still all be friends? So that's what this episode's about. Like I said, click a link in the description, and you'll see the different time codes if you want to jump ahead. If you want to go straight to the Becca Garrett conversation, I'll put it right here, so that way you can just know exactly that's the time code. And as always, make sure to click the subscribe button so you can be alerted to all of the new content as it comes out. If you want the audio-only version, say you love this conversation so much, but then you got to go into the minivan and take the kids to the mall, the link in the bottom, you can just search this app and find this episode there. All right, without further ado, here's my chat with Tasha and Dave. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to The Sap. As always, it's your boy Dave Neal, Tasha Courtney, and returning guest, our friend Dave Luneau. What's up, my man?
Oh, man. Absolute pleasure to be back.
It's good to have you here.
Enjoying another insanely gorgeous day up here.
Mid-October.
I love fall.
We couldn't be more blessed. It hasn't really felt like fall in Los Angeles, considering it's still getting up to the mid-90s every day. But as soon as the sun starts to go down, gets behind that tree over there, it really starts to feel nice up here.
Everyone's leaving town, right? Everyone's just moving out. And then these are the days you remember to stay in town. Yesterday we went to the beach. I mean, these are the days where you appreciate it while everyone's getting their early frost in New England right now. The hurricanes are still hitting or whatever, but welcome back. Was it about a month ago or so? Maybe even a little bit longer.
Yeah, maybe two?
A month
one
plus.
or two,
Yeah.
I don't do dates or times during quarantine. No, I don't know what it means.
My friend had a great saying for this where he was like, what is it? The days are long, the weeks are short. That just suddenly smashes together.
But it's beautiful.
And accurate, too, for sure. Like, if I didn't keep a paper calendar and, check in at night before I go to bed, I really wouldn't know. I would miss so many appointments because it was I don't know, an hour ago when I was like, oh, wait, today's Sunday.
Yes.
Got to go back to work tomorrow.
Now, look, this isn't political in my opinion. Well, everything's political, right?
We're about to get real political on this show, Dave, so you better just get on board.
Don't scare him away. I was going to ease him into it. Just the tip of politics right now, just to see if it's working. But I do remember in March when they said, hey, just chill out for 2 weeks. Let's see what happens. And I kind of thought that's kind of like what your mom would say, just to let you down. It's like they mommed us. They were like, just kind of hang out. If they said, hey, the next 8 months are going to be rough, people would have literally, it was rough already. You couldn't get toilet paper.
Well, yeah, it would have been nice if they would have been honest with us.
Well, I think you got to be optimistic and think maybe we'll kick it. I don't know.
No, but I think saying hey, maybe everybody, if we don't leave our freaking houses for 2 months straight, we will get to enjoy life again versus everyone does these half-assed measures, and now here we are, and nobody's going to be able to see their families at Christmas time.
What do you think that is? What do you think it is that makes Americans not want to? Because we're stubborn. Not want to be
smart.
Yeah, we're stubborn. It's not even necessarily a left-right thing. I know plenty of comics that are all doing these secret shows in town and whatever, and it's like you can shame people, you can do whatever, but people are going to do what they want to do. You know, if it's going to be their decision.
Yeah, I've got friends who like are really like deep into politics, who also they just feel like even if we had a president, you know, if Barack Obama, let's say, was still president, there would still be, you know, while there be a level of leadership kind of helping everybody, you know, get on the same page, there would still be this virulent, you know, anti-authority sense that is almost just a fundamental characteristic of American society.
And
like
do you
in some
think the
deep
states
level.
would be undermining like the collective effort in the same way as well?
Well, they did it with Obamacare, so I don't see why
Yeah.
they wouldn't do it with this.
Yeah, I think
because
you're right.
in so many ways, like for a lot of people, there's like this very toxic aspect of politics that has arisen as well, where people are identifying themselves as simply anti the other thing, you know, anti like the Democrat, like whatever the Democrats are going for,
It's
whatever
so
Obama's
binary.
going for. But simultaneously now on the left, there's a lot of people where it's absolutely reflexively like if it comes from the right, you know, we are anti that. We have to find some reason to reject it. And so
and to
I
like
think
understand the nuance, right?
Yeah.
Because there is a lot of nuance in the middle.
no, exactly. And it's the rejection of nuance. It's absolutely. And I think to some extent, the both sidesism is part of this also rejection, but it's the rejection of nuance from people who want to act like they're above everything. It's this very cynical angle where it's like, oh, well, both sides lie or both sides do this. It's like, well, yeah, but if one side lies 20,000 times, like if the one person lies like 20,000 times in 3 years and the other side lies like 20 times in that same period of time, like, isn't there a fundamental difference? Like,
Yeah.
we've lost the ability to differentiate by degree, to differentiate by quality.
Politicians are going to
quantity.
be smarmy and two-sided. Just, you know, no matter what side you're on, it's just got ramped up to such a level that it's like, well, look, we're not even arguing the same, you know, it's not even on the same battlefield anymore. And the problem that I have is that we're all trying to play this 2D chess in a 3D world. You know, it's not left versus right. There are so many layers to, like, my mom went from Tulsi to Trump like that. You know what I mean? Like, and she ain't alone. Like, a lot of people went from just something that would have been considered.
Wait, when did she do that? Like 2016 or just now?
In this primary, yeah,
Wow.
I think she was a Bernie, Tulsi, anti-Hillary, you know, and there's this scar tissue of like the DNC doing some real, you know, horrible shit to like, you know, to put their, you know, foot on the weight of the election, and it goes on all
In
sides.
2016.
I mean, we could, and again, we'll tackle like in more in depth, but it's
Yeah.
like you got like these drunks like Giuliani, who's, I don't know if he had a stroke or if he's just old or what his deal is, but like the Russians just hand him like this dirty laptop full of Biden porn, and he think, you know, and it's like, what the fuck? Like, what the fuck? And here we are enjoying a nice sunset, and it could be our last. Like, it's a heavy election. We got 16 days, folks. This
Is it
the
only 16 days away?
16.
Yeah. Although for me, it's like, I'm like, it's still 16 days away. It's just part of me is like, oh, this feels like it's been forever.
Wouldn't that be
Yeah.
a funny Groundhog's movie if it was always the day before the election?
No, that's
Every
the
day.
worst.
You're like in a swing state. You're in Iowa or some random shit. You're like every day.
Every
You
day,
just
all you're
get
doing.
thousands of mailers.
Exactly. Thousands of, and your phone's blowing up like crazy.
Boy, these printer presses are making money on us.
Keeping the posts.
This is what we have. We have a bucket. We have a giant bin underneath our mailbox, and we open the mailbox and take the mailers and put them right into the bin, and that's all you can do. It's just amazing. And these things aren't cheap. These are 16 inches. These are thick
Gloss,
cardstock, glossy. I mean, I know a good printer. These are good headshots. They have.
No, and like solid copy, you know, that's been like they're paying somebody to write it all out.
Oh, yeah.
It's, and at my place, we have, I mean, you guys are in a, you know, apartment building, so I'm sure you're many times past this, but there's 3 registered voters at my address. There's like 2 units. And for the 3 registered voters, I'd say we've probably gotten, I don't know, it's at least 5 pounds. I would estimate it's more like 10 pounds of these mailers because each individual one is so like heavy and thick, and each registered voter at this
is getting a
address
copy.
is getting
Yeah,
one.
so you're getting 3 of
Listen,
and they're probably sending 5 a week.
But someone in Silicon Valley needs to develop a thing where I can say, all right, here's what I'm going to be voting on. Leave me alone. Go put your money on someone else. This is what I'm doing.
You know what's funny? Somehow my mom must have given my cell phone number to somebody in Kentucky, because they message me and they say, hey, Jean, my mom's name's Jeannie. Hey, Jean, blah, 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 voting for McGrath. And I have written them back a couple times and been like, yeah, I don't live in Kentucky. You've got the wrong person. And they say, we'll take you off. But I'm getting nonstop text. I guess it makes me hopeful that they're texting lots of people in Kentucky.
Oh, they are, I'm sure.
Why? What's happening in Kentucky? What's going on there? I haven't heard.
It's our only chance at being saved.
Now, David, I want to start positive. So I want to say this. So I want to first announce that they found the female hiker in Zion National Park. So they found her alive. I had friends of friends that knew her, so like I had been following this, but she'd been missing for like a week or something like that. She's a mom. She wanted to go to the national parks because she lost her job because of COVID. So just like us and other people, she'd been traveling or seeing the parks, doing kind of what you can do. And they actually, I think like the park rangers had called it off like 3 or 4 days ago. They can only spend so much money looking for someone because people die all the time in these parks. But they had sent drones and they had search parties. They found her. She's in a hospital. So that is a good thing to report.
What happened?
Wow.
They don't know anything about it yet, but they just found this out a few hours ago. It's national news. We have been doing a lot of spiritual work on ourselves because of the quarantine. Yesterday, I was reading about faith. I was reading Wayne Dyer, Manifest Your Destiny. Tasha was reading
Marianne Williamson, The Law of Divine Compensation.
And actually, we were both reading random different.
I saw the IG story. Yeah.
Yeah, we were reading different passages, but it all had the same message because they are pretty intertwined, the two. But I was talking about faith and how everyone has faith. You just either have faith that things are going to work out, or you have faith that you're going to self-sabotage.
No, that was in my book.
Was that in your book?
That was Marianne Williamson.
Okay, well, there you go. But that's what it comes down to is like, are we going to have faith that the system's going to work itself out and we're going to reunite, or is it going to be the opposite? What do you think?
Well, if you really want to get into it, it's like Marianne Williamson says that the universe is self-correcting. So there's no wrong that can't be undone, right? So maybe not in 16 days, everything's going to be better. But, if it's not the outcome that we hope for, that doesn't mean that the universe still isn't conspiring for the greater good, which I think is important to remember. Sort of like let's just blow it all up mentality in 2016.
Yeah, and I just wonder, and I believe that as well. But then you get like sinister forces, like in Russia, and they're just trying to throw fuel on the fire to show divisiveness within a democracy. And it's kind of like if you just went to someone's, I've heard someone else make this analogy, but it's like if you went to a random person's party, started punching random people, you peed in the, peed all over the wall in the bathroom, you just started doing things to mess things up. You could ruin that party in 2 seconds before people know it was you. And it's kind of like that's what happened where there has been this divide, but it's just been exacerbated by Russian troll farms and things like that. And I don't know if enough people really realize what's been happening and are as mad as they should be.
What was the movie that we watched? It was a movie, right? It was a documentary. What did we just watch? I asked you this the other day, and you couldn't remember.
Was it the Netflix, the 3-part Netflix?
I don't
many.
know. We've been watching a bunch of really good political stuff. We watched the James Comey on Showtime. That one really.
The one with Jeff Daniels?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
And it was really good. And then we watched something else, and I want to say it was a documentary, Dave. We watched that in between James Comey and after the Netflix 3-part.
I'll add it at the end because I have no. Yeah,
we're going to have to reference these. But it was interesting because a lot of this stuff that we've been watching really spells it out for you. Like, you don't have to be, like, very politically inclined or, like, in tune to understand it. They make it nice and slow and steady so you can understand, like, exactly the intricacies that played out with, like, Russian meddling.
Yeah, and it's almost like people don't want to think that Russia had anything to do with Trump winning, but it's like, look, Russia probably didn't care if Trump was going to win. They just wanted it to be bloody. And then once they saw it work, I mean, they originally did it in Crimea, and then all of a sudden, next thing you know, they're realizing that like 100-person troll farm was enough to sow such a great divide within our country with these sensitive topics, like creating fake Black Lives Matter groups and creating fake this. And then all of a sudden in Brazil, there's a blog that goes up that's supposed to be some like mom and pop shop in the middle, in the middle of Iowa or something, and it's like, how duped were we able to get? And we should be so upset on all sides of it, but we're still kind of in the thick of things. Like, we're still realizing this sort of like this terrorist attack on us.
A lot of people that don't believe that it was real, that don't believe that Russia influenced. Can you imagine? It comes back to like cognitive dissonance, right? You don't want to believe that you were duped. You don't want to believe that someone like fooled you into like becoming more entrenched in these ideologies that you already had. Like maybe you were leaning right, but I'll be the first one to raise my hand and say, I was a Bernie supporter and I went hard for Bernie and I really loved Bernie and I believe that he was going to be a bringer of change for us. And the little birdie landed on his shoulder and it was a magical Cinderella moment. And this was my guy, okay? And I was furious when the DNC undermined him and put their foot on the scale for Hillary. I was furious. And I was not here for that party, and I wanted to make a statement. And you know what? I voted for Jill Stein, but I also live in California where I knew that wouldn't fucking matter. You know what I mean? Let's be smart about it. If I'm living in a swing state, I'm not going to vote third party, but I felt perfectly justified in doing it here in California because who cares?
It's like telling your mom you're not going to eat dinner, but you just ate a Big Mac, so you're like cool with it. You're like, Mom, I'm taking a stand. I'm full, and I don't want to hear it.
But I do know that the entire primary process, I was ragging on Hillary. And you're allowed to go for your candidate and rag on other candidates, right? But looking back now, a lot of this anti-Hillary rhetoric was pushed by the Russians with a very specific end. No?
Yeah.
And maybe I'm not trying to look at the past.
You're going to
and
have
blame
to find
myself.
this documentary for me because I haven't looked this up.
It's
man, we really
real
should.
interesting.
I've heard enough reporting on it.
You got to watch
stuff,
this James Comey thing too. It gets into it as well. It's really interesting. I didn't know that they had intel. They were investigating that Trump was helped by the Russians at the same time that they were making announcements
and
about
then the Republicans
Hillary.
in the Senate refused to allow that announcement to go public. So,
But
the Intelligence Committee.
Yeah, no, it's real effed up.
So how are we going to do? How are we going to do in the next 16 days? I mean,
okay,
you got Biden. Biden's got these polls, quote unquote.
All right. First question that was coming was about like faith, right?
And I apologize. We did ask you 17 questions in a row and then talked amongst ourselves. Someone's going to comment and tell us. I'm sorry.
I love it. Like, it was great just because I was seeing how it connects together. And
It doesn't. It's a ramble.
It absolutely does. And I was like, there were so many moments where in my own head I was like, "Shut up, Dave.
We don't
shut up.
Feel free to interrupt.
Dave. Shut up, me.
No, tell us to shut up.
Dave and I started dating, and I had to learn to interrupt because otherwise I would have gotten in 4 words a year. So apologies.
So first thing, I look at your faith question as a question of where you find optimism, because the whole faith of whether things are going to work out or the faith that things are going to go to crap, I look at as optimism versus pessimism. And yes, even if Trump wins, no matter what, I simply have to fundamentally, I feel like being active is an act of optimism. Okay, being civically active, politically active, trying to change anything is accepting the possibility that you could change it for the better.
Yeah, because what's your other option? To just be resigned that this is how it is and do nothing and wallow in a hole?
And that is an option. Yes, it is 100%. Like, that is absolutely an option. Let's not discount that. Exactly, it is. And I think a lot of people have gone there. And I think also it's not necessarily, one size fits all for all of life, all of events, all of everything. You can be optimistic about the state of the country and be pessimistic about the DNC. You could be optimistic about, maybe California and, or the state of the country, be pessimistic about climate change and what's going to happen. But simply, and for me, the biggest fundamental issue that I've had to deal with is, especially these days, where it's like the more you read and learn and know, the more reasons you have to not be optimistic, to be pessimistic. And so being able to fundamentally remind myself and just like come back to the idea of, I don't know everything, which for young me would have been a very difficult thing to wrap his head around. And also that things can change way faster than we can possibly anticipate or expect. Those two things are kind of where I go back to have faith that things can get better. But I definitely do not subscribe to any of the notions of things simply will get better. Like the arc of history is long, but it bends towards justice, or, it will just get better. It's like, no, it gets better. Like if it bends towards justice, it's because people are throwing their bodies against it and shoving it that way.
Yeah, action.
Yes.
Did you turn me down?
I did a little bit. Sorry.
Why?
Well, you have you have a louder microphone. I didn't realize I turned you that far down.
Okay.
Your
But
microphone's
action.
louder.
Change doesn't come about just because we all sat back and politely asked for it. No, change comes about because of action. And I think it's the same sort of like the flu stuff that we were into yesterday with Marianne Williamson and Wayne Dyer. Like,
Sorry, what's flu? You mean like foo-foo or
Yeah.
like flu? Like,
Yeah.
I don't know if you're referencing like COVID. I think like the flu stuff.
both. I think that I'm just trying to like walk it back a little bit.
But Marianne Williamson talks about shifting of consciousness, like you had kind of mentioned that there is a shift happening. And when you do talk about a global shift, it kind of happens when you talk about quantum mechanics, it kind of happens all at once. It's kind of like as soon as you know something, you can't unknow it. As soon as you see the old lady in the puzzle, you can't unsee that old ratchet lady. She's there.
I think that
And that's what woke is.
the real lesson is that our outcomes are affected by our optimism or our pessimism, by our leans towards action or our leans toward inaction, right? But if you see the world in a negative light, you're probably just attracting more negative to you. If you're resigned to there's nothing I can do about this, then you're just going to spiral into this dark place. But if you are optimistic, if you are taking active steps to make the world a better place, the one you imagine, you are designing that better world for yourself, right?
Yeah, we all have the ability to empathize with others outside of our group. It's just a matter of there's a reason why there's like an electoral divide between cities and suburbs. And I know that it's blurred a little bit. There's been a lot of city folks moving to suburbs, but like yesterday, right? We're at the beach. There's a nice black family to our right. There's a guy his daughter's running into the ocean and he's running slower behind her. He's like this heavy. I was like, he might have been a grandpa. He was a little bit of an older guy, 3 or 4 kids there. He's kind of watching her play. He's got a big smile. I'm ready to cry because I'm just watching this. I'm drinking a Diet Coke, watching this family have a great day. And I'm just watching it. I'm reading about Wayne Dyer talking about unconditional love. I'm watching it. To the left, there's a young group happening, and then a Hispanic lady walks by me selling churros. Tasha, give me $5. I'm buying some churros. They were a little stale. They had been sitting out for a little bit. but the last time I talked about the churros, I didn't buy. I let the lady walk by, and for like 2 days, I was thinking about those churros afterwards. So I bought some beach churros, and I'm just thinking if people can live in a world that's a mixed pot, you start to realize like. I'm no better. We're all in this together. We're all humans. We really don't have as many.
Fundamentally want the same things, right? We just want to live a life without lack and fear, right? And that's abundance, according to Miss Marianne Williamson.
Very flu of you. But it's easy to divide people when you think like, there was, like I was saying the other day, there's plenty of people that were like, hey, I'm all for the Affordable Care Act as long as it's not that Obamacare shit. There's so many people that like they don't even know what they want. My sister's super pro-life. But I think if you break what she thinks down, she would be okay with someone else making their own decisions, which would make her pro-choice. But she doesn't realize that because she lives in a world where she just follows these, baby bloggers and they just live in this
and lots
cute
of
little
people
world.
don't want to be challenged. They don't want to have their preconceived notions and ideas challenged. They don't want to do any deeper digging.
Deeper digging.
Thank you.
Yep.
I can't talk today. And so they just leave it with what's easiest, right? And I can understand it's a complicated world. Sometimes, like, we just want the easy way out. But I think there's got to be something that we, like, I wish that we had some sort of, like, PSA campaign that was like, you're allowed to question stuff. You know, you're allowed to, like, change your mind or change your beliefs. It is encouraged for you to dig deeper and try and learn a little more.
And isn't that a problem with politics, that we get mad at people for being flip-floppers, as they call them? I understand if you can tie flip-flopping to, like, campaign donors or what have you, but, like, you should almost embrace that, like, Obama changed his mind about gay marriage versus being, like, stuck on something because that's what he was told to do to get elected. You know, like, you don't know, you have to embrace people that are willing to change for the better when they're provided with new information.
Yes, 100. I mean, what you just described is, I think, one of a quality that we would all hopefully acknowledge is an aspirational human quality. The idea that we would all try to go ahead and modify our beliefs, modify our opinions in light of better and more robust information. And unfortunately, it does not happen enough, and it is often vilified. And at least for me, the first time I believe where flip-flop was coined was with John Kerry and running against W back in 2004, and having him change his position on the Iraq War, criticizing it, and they're saying, oh, well, now he flip-flopped because he actually voted for it. And that was actually, in a lot of ways, I feel like a lot of Hillary's problem too, is it's not enough just to simply say, like, well, now I feel differently about it. It's, you have to own what you did. And that's a lot of it where, with a lot of politicians, I think one of the biggest problems we have with so many politicians on the national scale, and which is often shows, and it's difficult to observe a lot in Los Angeles, but we still do have it here. Los Angeles, I'm saying it's difficult simply because I'm about to say, like, local politics are different than national. But in LA, our local politics are still for a city of well over 3 million people. So a city itself, which is bigger than, 20 different states, at least. And so even in LA, you can see there's a lot more nuance available, whereas on the national level, there's just almost no nuance. And I think that a lot of the consultants that basically form, I think, the first, like, 3 or 4 layers around most national politicians, those consultants are just constantly whispering in their ears, like, no, you can't ever, like, say that you were wrong. You can't ever, like, if you want to change your mind on it, just change your mind. But you can't say that you were wrong. That's going to be a sign of weakness. They're going to crucify you.
And they do.
That's
they
all
will
going to be it.
Right,
but
they will
one
use that.
therapist in marriage counseling would say, don't say sorry. Just change your behavior. Don't say sorry. It's like, no, you have to acknowledge, like,
Exactly.
that you up. You have
And in
to
the
say,
end,
I screwed up. I have changed my mind. I'm going to do
And you
better,
have to
and
trust
follow it with
the
action.
other person, that they're going to be mature enough to actually
understand.
appreciate that and see you as a 3-dimensional individual.
Yeah, and you are an elected official, so you have your constituents, and you pretty much are voting on their behalf. And a lot of times,
Well, you're supposed to.
You're supposed to, of course, but people their collective mind does change. Like, it'll when we look back on things, the acceptance of gay marriage in the history of things will flip very fast when we look at it. Same thing with, like, being okay with weed. I mean, it's really been just a couple short years. Now, it doesn't mean that so much wrong hasn't happened between mass incarceration.
Incarceration.
Jesus, I'd like to look at Tasha like, please save me right now. Oh boy, haven't even had the second beer yet. But it's once you start looking at, like, following the money and campaign donations. I mean, Lindsey Graham, it might lose his election right now. A week before he, Oracle became the bidder for TikTok. They donated to his campaign. Are you familiar with any of that?
No, I wasn't.
Yeah, Oracle was.
I mean, I would assume Oracle, given how big they are, donates to most politicians,
Right,
as a lot of those large tech companies do. They're kind of almost agnostic about politics.
Right. But the money, but when
I'm not sure. Yeah.
But his challenger, this African American guy, I don't know his name off the top of my
Jamie
head.
Harrison.
Yeah, there you go. Thank you so much.
No
Good
problem.
To have you here.
That's why I'm here.
I was thinking we should have a podcast, you and I, called Two Daves Make a Right. I'll just say random things and you'll correct me and lead me in the right direction.
Perfect.
But yeah, he was up. He's up a couple percentage points in a poll, and it could be a very big flip. And the thing is when, as a country, will we? I mean, I personally don't gloat over like victories politically. Like I've been on the losing side of a lot of things I've supported, but I think when you take away the structure of us versus them. Put it this way: I'm a Tom Brady fan. Okay, I've loved him for 20 years when he was with the Patriots. I'm also a Patriots fan, but I'm now rooting for Tom Brady for the Buccaneers. If somebody in the Republican Party, if they wanted to put a platform together that I was all about, that was going to help people, maybe if an affordable healthcare solution, I would be cool looking into that. If that was going to benefit me or my family, I mean, you got to think of the United States as a whole. What's going to help us move forward? Is it some like looking into universal basic income when companies like Amazon start running everything and people don't have jobs anymore? Is it going to be like some crazy marginal tax on billionaires? But for whatever reason, we got a bunch of people making $50,000 a year with their arms in the air, upset because Biden wants to put a tax on people making over $400,000. It's like people just aren't edgy. It's easier to sell someone on fear than it is on what's going to help them, it seems. Because everything Trump talks about is just fear at this point. They're going to take away your jobs. They're going to tax you. They're going to, send you out. It's one
They're
thing.
going to put Section 8 housing in your suburb.
Yeah, everything. Yeah. And for me, as like, I look, whenever I'm being sold fear, I don't know if this was just studying marketing in college. Whenever I'm sold fear, I go, why are you trying to scare me?
Yeah.
What are you trying to scare me about? What are we actually worried about here? And usually when you try to sell someone on fear, it's because you don't have a better point.
Yeah. No, and I think that's fundamentally one of the biggest lessons anybody, who takes a cursory glance at American politics over the past, over our lifetimes would be able to easily
because what's Trump saying? Because we all know he doesn't have a platform, and
but not everyone does.
But what's not a fear?
Wait, no,
everything's
but
a fear.
Let's not just gloss over that. You said that as in like he doesn't have a platform, but let's make sure anybody listening to this knows he literally does not have a platform.
Healthcare's on the way, man. It's coming.
He promised it. How many weeks have been? He promised.
They were one vote away from overturning Obamacare, and that was, I want to say, it was at least 2 full years ago now. It might have been more than that. And he still, they haven't brought out any sort of replacement plan. We know that it's complete. They're full of shit at this point, and this is also one of the difficult parts of the entire analysis about American politics is that the Republican Party has hit a point where, I mean, we were weak enough as a country when both parties were beholden to the citizens that were on different sides and the divide of different beliefs. That was difficult enough simply because 2 parties is not enough to possibly
cover everyone's interests.
Exactly. But now one of the parties has basically been completely captured by interests that really have no interest whatsoever in helping
like corporate
people.
Interests.
Yes. Well, and also just like the super uber wealthy, and which is why like frequently it's like, why are they going to play on fear and all of these other things? Because typically it's like our funders are willing to go ahead and give us like abortion to campaign on, which has been like their number one thing for so long. we're able to be a little racist, although that's becoming a lot more problematic now that we can see actually that it's like with Black Lives Matter, Colin Kaepernick, etc., like Nike, all of these major brands, like everything's actually becoming now like a monetary issue as well, a capitalism issue.
Yeah, people are learning to vote with their dollars.
Yes. And it's like, and these companies, it's, I mean, the idea that Nike and that NASCAR, would have like said, nope, there will be no more Confederate flags. Or, like if we're going to do like a stand in solidarity with Bubba Wallace. It's just that on its own. That
got so much play for being the biggest progressive movement by any major sport. It wasn't the NBA, because they had issues with China, where they make so much money from China that they weren't willing to sort of like, do you know any of that? Yeah, I mean that's all.
I can't remember what was it. The Uyghurs that they weren't willing to call out. They
weren't willing to call they had someone. I think it was in the Houston Rockets, or there was a GM that was calling out what was happening in China, and then the NBA just shut that down right away. And whenever you try to shut something down, I think it's called the Barbara Streisand effect, right? Whereas the second you try to shut something down, it goes tenfold, straight up. And then all of a sudden NASCAR is like, no, we're not dealing with this shit. Everyone's like, what? NASCAR is the one. Everyone PBR. NASCAR's the one that's going to do a full stop, and they did a full stop on no Confederate flags at events, and I mean that might not sound like a big deal, but this is a new thing. I mean, you can still go to a gas station in Texas and find a Confederate flag. I mean, it's not crazy to think. It's just a new way of thinking that like, hey, we're gonna err on the side of like moving forward, not like celebrating parts of the past that were used to either intimidate parts of our country or means one thing to you. Like, I mean, Tasha, you should celebrate the fact that, but when this podcast was in its early days, you were still defending the Confederate flag because as a Kentuckian, it meant something to you that wasn't racist. But
well, I wouldn't say I was defending the Confederate flag, but I think I still had this, what's the word? I was raised in a school that when we talked about the Civil War, talked about states' rights. Right? States' rights. Like, it's very much kind of, you're indoctrinated in the South to believe that this is a part of, that this is heritage, that they gloss over slavery, right? You just don't.
The lost cause narrative is what the rewriting of the Civil War and the reasons for the Civil War was. It was very transparently about slavery.
Yeah.
But then, and this is one of the things that in American history is so poorly taught, and that's one of the really fundamental failures of our society is you can't be a healthy democratic society if you don't have an accurate and a robust knowledge of self, and self meaning the country,
your history.
It's it's like owning an old was it old buffet? What's that? Old time buffet? Is that what it's called?
I don't know.
It's like owning one of those buffet restaurants, but refusing to serve the Italian food. It's like you gotta give people the chance to try, taste their palate. And with education, it's like, how do you have faith that people are going to progress and become enlightened when every single generation can and might be restricted on what they're going to be taught?
Well, it's interesting because it's whitewashing, right? It's whitewashing of our history books. It's not being honest about our complicity in really horrible things. And people always say the Nazis, you can't in Germany now, you cannot fly a Nazi flag.
Correct.
Right? But in America, we can still fly a Confederate flag. What? And they actively, they talk about the horrors of what happened in World War II in Germany. They acknowledge the mistakes that they made and have actively tried to put the right foot forward. We have not done that here. We haven't owned up to our mistakes. We haven't even we're not even teaching our kids that it was my sister works for a education company. I don't want to say the name of her work, but they write textbooks and materials and CD-ROMs. I don't know. CD-ROMs. This is 95.
Is she still alive?
Scholastic Book Club? What do they got over there?
But her company has taken a very active approach in making sure that their materials are accurate and inclusive, especially with Black Lives Matter and everything that happened this year. They really took a very active approach in making sure that minority voices were heard in their company and where can we make changes and where can we do better. And it's that sort of attitude that I think is going to really empower citizens. I feel like I was done a disservice by getting this like very sort of washed over version of...
You got propaganda.
Yeah, I got
let's be honest.
propaganda, just like they did in USSR.
I mean, you guys have heard the statement, history is written by like the winners.
Right, yeah,
exactly, the winners. So it's like, who really won the Civil War if we're hearing the South's version of history? If the South gets to dictate the version of history that we end up hearing, in a lot of ways, it's like, wait, did the South not win the Civil War?
And they didn't. I mean, if you think about segregation and Jim Crow and, no, they
didn't lose. Yeah,
they didn't lose. Yeah,
they rewrote the laws to.
They just made it They made a different.
They couldn't overturn the amendment outlawing chattel slavery, and so, but there was that little, if you've seen Ava DuVernay's documentary 13th, and if you haven't, put that on your list.
That's the one we'll have to watch tonight.
But it's in the 13th Amendment, which abolished slavery. There's an exception for if you're basically serving time for a felony.
Crime.
Yeah. And so immediately, of course, like mass that becomes the seed of mass incarceration, being something that people don't have a problem with as long as it's still happening to those people.
And if people wonder,
brown people primarily.
And if people wonder, like, if this is like a truth or not, we have the most imprisoned people in the world.
Yeah, by portion
of the world per capita.
No. Sorry, actually, we have just on a absolute basis. I forgot.
More than anyone.
No, we actually, just pure number of people in our system. Yeah, we have the most, and and on a per capita.
Because
basis.
I like to look at it as sort in some ways like a skeptic, where you go, okay, well, I want people to know, like, when you're looking at numbers, they can always be molded to fit a narrative, but you have to realize per capita or collectively, we have the most people that have their rights stripped away because they're in jail. And then you have to say, well, we got to put away the bad people. Well, how come? You know what I mean? Well, then we're putting away we have just more bad people. We just got more assholes in our country that are just, doing them darn crimes that, you have to just look at it kind of like just logically and go, oh, it's the way that we can manipulate people that can vote, people that can like live their life. They're put into debt. They can't afford bail.
But you kind of missed the point that like 80% of incarcerated people are black people, right?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure this is the numbers. Yeah.
Okay. We should look it up and put it in the show notes. But I mean, it's crazy disproportionate to our population.
It's absolutely disproportionate.
If we're going to say that all humans do bad things in equal numbers, which they do because humans, then why is it all black people, but a lot of black people who are in prison? Well, because if you have a felony, you can't vote in a lot of states.
And it's not like every
felony conviction.
It's not like every
cop. So it really is like a systematic sort of removal of a section of the population as a voter base.
And this is Michelle Alexander wrote a book. She's brilliant, and she wrote a book called The New Jim Crow, and examines a lot of this, where basically it was even after. So of course Jim Crow was after slavery, and then even after Jim Crow was, via the civil rights movement, Jim Crow got defeated. Then there's still basically mass incarceration and the carceral state, and then like probation and everything else that happens. The way that and we have a police chopper flying by in the background. If you all can hear that, perfect timing. Perfect timing.
Shut us down, folks. By the way, I should mention we are on the roof. People don't know we are on the roof.
Yes.
And this is what you have. LAPD, they've got 40 different helicopter pilots. It's our tax money, folks. Always making you feel afraid. They fly 30 feet off the ground at the beach. What are they looking for?
Yeah, and they really do just do laps. I mean, it's like back and forth. I'm always like pulling my hat a little low and like turning away from them. Like, what's going on
For
with this
every
surveillance?
helicopter flying, you could probably have 50 social workers scooping up people that are, tripping on acid, doing whatever, the crack problems.
Or just being homeless.
Yeah, and then just like help people, you know what I mean? But I digress, folks. This is
All the cop cars coming by.
Oh,
There's
yeah.
4, 5, 6.
This is an example. Yeah,
This must be a peaceful protest.
Yeah, people
somewhere
don't
nearby.
realize that
Or-
don't live here. Like we're talking, I could hit that helicopter with my drone right now.
Yes.
Like it rattles our windows at night, and you wonder. Don't get me wrong. Every once in a while, there's a guy running around off his meds with an axe trying to kill people. Like we've got that. It's Los Angeles. But I also want, I always want to know. What are they looking for? Like, does this warrant the use of that helicopter, or do you just have a budget for fuel that you need to burn through? By the way,
the
there's
end of the year.
and again,
They've
I'm
got
sorry
a-
for my
they've got a
ADD,
budget
but
surplus.
there's just so many beautiful hawks flying right now. I'm sorry.
Thank you. I've
Look
been
at this.
noticing
They're,
that.
they're
No,
just moving
it's
around.
gorgeous. It's inspiring.
We live near a lot of crime and a lot of hawk nests. And again, red-tailed hawks. I've been attacked by them. But sorry, let's just go back.
But
I know
seeing
it's hard
those
to
crows
focus.
try to mess with the hawk, I'm always just like, what are you doing? You are so outmatched. I mean, I got to admire the gumption.
We should have a bird watching
Crows
podcast.
are brilliant. Crows
Yes.
are my favorite birds.
Okay, there's some sort of article that's out recently about crows having some sort of higher mental ability
Than
that they
we ever
thought,
realized.
Yeah, that they thought was only like humans and maybe
Primates.
dolphins.
They
and
remember
primates.
you.
Yeah.
They're like an octopus of the air.
Well, they've
Yeah.
known that for a long time. They've known how clever they are. They know that they have the ability to use
tools. Yeah.
And that they do specifically remember faces. If you are nice to crows, they will be nice to you. Like there's plenty of instances of crows befriending a little girl and bringing her ribbons and stuff that they find, right, that are sparkly and pretty. And if you're mean to a crow, the crows do not like
Steal
you.
your
If you're a
ribbons.
farmer, right, who's shooting crows around his crops, no, those crows will fuck you up.
But whereas these hawks, look at this hawk over here. I mean, these
Yeah.
hawks are just vicious dinosaurs.
No, they're not.
They're dinosaurs. They are literally raptors. They are air pirates. They just come. Look, that guy's just floating around waiting for some squirrel to come down, and he's just going to mess you up. Anyway, folks, you guys don't care, but that's just a slice of life. We do have, for a major metropolis, we have so much wildlife here. We went hiking the other day and saw a bunch of deer and, coyote running around, and these hawks are attacking me.
It's amazing that the police chopper and that are and the hawk are making the same little circles over prey. The similarities are striking.
Our listeners are probably like, what the fuck is happening over
We're
there?
on shrooms.
Are we doing politics or are we doing David Attenborough? The hawk flies above the LAPD.
Oh, we watched that one too. The life
Our Planet? Or what?
Yes, yeah, Our Planet. What,
Okay.
Yeah,
The
I was thinking
Netflix version or no?
or was it Life on Our Planet? It's a movie.
I don't know.
It's his mission statement movie.
Yeah. Okay.
And it was
I haven't seen that.
really good and sad and good.
Yeah, no, those nature shows are definitely the best justification for dropping the money on a new big TV set in ages, where it's just you sit there and it's
Absolutely.
wow, I feel high, but I'm sober. But let's
you
also see what this is like when I'm high.
Oh yeah, we got a smoke a joint. We got a 65-inch TV. We got the nice surround sound, and then
Oh my god!
and then we'll watch an action movie, and then the LAPD helicopter will go by, and literally you're just like, what the
am I high or is that coming from outside?
both?
Super duper surround sound.
So anyway, this is the this is the COVID rooftop podcast. Every once in a while, you get a helicopter flying overhead. It's still there. It still hasn't found what it's looking for. But anyway, I'm sorry.
That's just part of the
have
charm of the podcast.
Yes.
This background noise.
drifted very far from the topic at hand. But
This is-
where were we even?
I don't know
going.
where we were.
Well, I don't know. Next thing I was going to ask
Please
is,
do.
did you guys hear about talking about kind of revisionist history, propaganda, the winners writing history, and also the feeling of, I feel like there's this feeling of almost inevitability with the progress that's being made with, marriage equality, with Black Lives Matter being embraced kind of by mainstream capitalism and, corporate America. But did you hear about President Trump attacking the 1619 Project from the New York Times? That's the big history project about slavery and the transatlantic slave trade and basically the legacy of that in America.
No, I didn't
And-
hear anything about this.
Does this
Okay,
have to do with
and he
him wanting to
announced-
cancel diversity training?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
Please,
it's
know
part
way
of the
more.
same attacks.
Okay.
Like, so when he's talking about he wants to cancel diversity training, sensitivity training, anything like that, and I mean, it's a massive issue. Like, I cannot imagine. Well, I'm going to be very curious to see how the implementation goes on this, because he wants to do it for all government offices and contractors, which the government works with so many massive corporations that obviously do a lot of sensitivity training and diversity training, that they're also doing. They weren't, to my knowledge, doing it only because they want to get some government contract, but also because they're trying to insulate themselves from potential lawsuits,
Right.
Based on discrimination.
And if you think just about like tech,
Yes.
they're beholden to
Oh.
their employees and their shareholders, and like I feel like tech would not ever let this fly. Like,
Well, yeah. I mean, the libertarian side of tech would probably be like, well, we get to do whatever the hell we want, so who are you to tell us this? But there's also other parts of tech who, on that same libertarian front, might be like, why the hell am I in another one of these diversity training things? I can do my job, So there's definitely I'm not sure tech is super woke.
Okay.
As far as if you look at, gender, race, diversity, like it's
Yeah,
in tech, it's
certainly
just
not
not
gender.
good. Okay.
Yeah,
like
yeah,
period.
absolutely,
Especially if
yeah.
we're not just focusing on gaming, which is its own problematic industry. But with Trump, what he wanted to do was he wanted to launch, basically the response was, it was the 1776 project or something like project. And so, but, just basically like, okay. And the best, I think it was The Onion, but like it was so perfect. Like the joke about it was simply that the headline was 1776 project can't come up with ways to make American history like more propagandistic, I guess, or like, more like propaganda, which is in so many ways like very accurate when we all look back, I feel like, on what we learned. I mean, I was, in tons of great history classes, but I think back on, I didn't learn much about like post-Civil War, like Reconstruction. I feel like we blew
glossed
over
right
it.
over that.
Yeah.
I picked up a book by chance when I first moved to Los Angeles, just to fill time at a used bookstore that blew my mind on like on Reconstruction specifically.
Wow.
Yeah,
I love how you just fill your time. That's
well,
awesome.
not anymore. Now I just watch Netflix. Now I'm
But
just a
there
slob.
is like Jordan Peterson was actually trying to develop a curriculum that was more like just information people need to have, and was because he had worked in I think the University of Toronto or whatever college it was, and they kind of were trying to censor him, and there's certain colleges where they were getting like Marxist, and then there's other colleges that you're getting protested for speaking at, and there is the internet. There is the ability for all of us to decide, hey, this YouTube channel gets it right. So who's going to be out there and like share the information that everyone wants? We don't need textbooks. We need free-flowing information. We need people that aren't funded by this side or that side or the other. And I'm sure that exists, and it just needs to take a root. But there needs to be this conversation amongst educators that provides information, because there are textbooks that can only fit so much info on the page. So not everyone has, this some racist imprint in them. It's just a matter of like, well, are we studying European history or are we going to study this history?
But we do need textbooks, and we do need educators. We need, I think I'm not in this area, but I know some people in this area. If you go to schools in particular in different parts of the country, the principal's ideology is going to, and the supervisor's ideology and the school board's ideology are all going to trickle down into what the teachers are allowed to teach.
Yep.
So,
we've all seen the headlines about like, a teacher who had maybe a Black Lives Matter t-shirt or something else, like in a classroom or on a Zoom call, like,
and then
ended
all
up
of a
getting
sudden
suspended.
because of emails from parents or whatever.
Now, let me ask you this, because I consider myself, I don't want to put a label on what I am, but it might come from my self-expression as a comic, but I do value the idea of freedom of speech. And I do understand that that doesn't mean
Hippie.
I can't get, but it means it doesn't mean I can't get fired for just saying some crazy shit. But we have gone from just writing into someone if you don't like what they, their opinions are, to trying to get people fired for everything. So how can we justify because the YouTube that since you've been on the podcast, we had a few things go viral.
Awesome.
Over 3 million minutes watched.
What?
Crazy. Yeah, it's been crazy. Thank you, whoever is
awesome.
watching. And
I've had it on loop in the background.
a few things have gone. A few things have gone viral. I mean, so for 8 million impressions. I mean, insane.
That's fantastic.
And for the most part, people agree with the message. But there's people that they just want to pick apart what you're saying and not appreciate. And again, this isn't so much about cancel culture, so much as about how can you be for freedom of speech, but also want like for Tasha, it sounds like with the Nazi thing, you don't want people I actually want to see people's true colors. I want to know if there's going to be a KKK parade, that they get a permit through the city and it's a nonviolent thing. And I want people to know that this exists versus putting everything into the dark depths, because you're never burning it out. You're just kind of hiding it. So where do you stand on all that? I understand
it's one of the toughest. It's one of the toughest issues facing democratic society. And it's something that we have not been well equipped to deal with, because I think we've had this incredibly facile. We've been taught this very facile and simple version of free speech, and that's everybody should be allowed to say whatever they want. And so then even the people who are against free speech, and I don't mean against free speech as just politically correct, which is just such a toxic term on its own, or the way it's used, but people who are fundamentally against a free society, fundamentally against the right of other people to speak and to just be seen in society, that those people are now treated as they have special rights. And that starts to become very difficult, where, for example, if you say there are no absolutes, there always has to be an exception except this rule. There are no absolutes except this rule, that there are no other absolutes. Okay? And it's the same thing with a free society. It's okay, I believe, we have to be free and we have to tolerate everything except people who would fundamentally attack the free and democratic nature of our society. And so if that's what you are doing, then you now fall outside of this. If you are fundamentally trying to change this free and equal and democratic nature of our society, we cannot extend you the very benefits of this society that you are trying to destroy. And this is the kind of thing that I wasn't equipped with growing up. I feel fundamentally when you grow up in, at least where I did, this nice white little suburb where everything becomes much more of an intellectual exercise. And so it's more of a question of, well, can you just, stomach what I'm saying, as opposed to, is what I'm saying putting your existence in actual risk? And
it's kind of like how Facebook has taken the stance that they will allow whatever ludicrous bullshit to be posted and reposted in fake articles and whatever, as long as it doesn't incite violence. That was their kind of
Is that where they drew the line?
Yeah, mode of removal. Your post would be removed if it was inciting violence. Your post would be removed if it was hate speech or bullying. But I guess it's always up to the moderator, right? They're the person who's reviewing it.
They have their third-party reviewers or whatever.
But I think what's difficult, and of course, obviously, all of this stuff is nuanced. Is what you're doing actively harming someone else?
Where's the bottle opener?
I don't know.
I was asking for the bottle opener for those of you
Here's
listening.
your keys.
So.
No, where the f*** did I put the bottle?
In the bag, maybe? Did you pop it down somewhere? But I think what we're missing is sure, there are some people who are going to who are going to be overt and explicit in their disdain for a certain group or American democracy, right? But most of it is going to be much more nuanced. And a lot of it is going to be coming from people who don't really understand that they're like responding to the dog whistle. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And that's where I think it's tricky. It's like, for example, someone on my Facebook timeline is deep in the QAnon.
Oh,
Facebook
God.
recently announced that they were going to start targeting the QAnon groups, right? So I thought to myself, I'm outing myself. Well, maybe I can start reporting some of these posts, and the original post, if it's a repost, will get taken down.
You're Karen in training right here.
I can't with this QAnon stuff. I just can't. Normally, I just live and let live, but But anyway, I think what I'm getting
I think
at.
that's a good thing.
Yeah, I think what I'm getting at is there's a lot of people like free speech. Yes, we want free speech. We want to be able to discuss ideas, right? And we want ideas to flourish in this country so that we can be better, right?
Yep.
But I think we've got a lot of people that don't really fully understand the impact of their idea and their spreading of somebody else's sort of like mission, if that makes sense.
100%. I mean, to some extent, this reminds me of, remember when in the 90s there was this huge attack against rap? For like, all the rap lyrics are the reason why kids have guns and, there's like this violence.
And then it was
And the
video
rappers-
games.
Yeah, and the rappers are kind of like,
You.
yeah, exactly. Like, this is some bullshit. Whereas there is an actual power to ideas, and there is a power to the spread of ideas. And for example, when we're saying like, I just want all these ideas to be out there, I want people to just be able to go on YouTube, and then I feel like Dave, you had said something along the lines of, it's not about like people necessarily financing it or paying for it, but unfortunately in real life, like
They
that
are.
absolutely is what's happening. Like there's a reason why, climate denialism is a thing. There's a reason why there's like still so many people out there who actually think that trickle-down economics works. And it's-
Because PR firms and think tanks designed it this way. They pick strategies
Bing,
just
bing,
like abortion, pro-life. They pick strategies that they know are going to like inflame people, right? They've spent tons of money. They've done lots of studies knowing that if we push this, we are more likely to get the outcome that we want.
But also, and you're talking about different ways to potentially make dishonest and manipulative arguments. But on top of all of that, the same when cigarettes, like when we knew already that it's like this causes cancer, emphysema, birth defects, like this is horrible. Of course, the industry then went, well, we're going to go ahead and hire our own scientists, and they'll do like 80 studies. We'll release 4 of them. And so
The ones that paint us in the best light.
It's like when I talk about
The
how
one
you
that's
can find
cast
numbers
some
to
doubt.
fit your narrative. And it's like Mike
Yes.
Pence was talking about how cigarettes don't cause harm in the early 2000s. This is relatively new as shit here. And I had just done this whole video about how the leading cause of conditions where people die of COVID is obesity, and how we have got this huge problem with it. And there's scientists that have been paid by sugar industry and dairy industry just to say like, we're not the problem, sugar's not the problem. Coca-Cola paid for that.
Oh my gosh,
the dairy
yeah.
industry is paying for it. And it's like, Jesus Christ, what are we doing here? This is happening under our eyes, and
But I
we're
guess-
finally coming to terms with like the fact that people can be bought. You see that like if Trump doesn't get what he wants from Fauci, he's going to get it from the herbologist, over there at GNC is going to tell him what he wants to hear, and he's going to. It's like where does the buck stop?
I think that just most people, like our news, when it comes to us on Facebook, doesn't come with a disclaimer. The study, the website where this paper is published that shows that smoking is perfectly fine, doesn't say paid for by Marlboro.
Marlboro.
there we go. I'm glad you got that one, because I was like, I don't
That's a
think I could do
mouthful.
this one.
I wanted to ask you a question before the sun goes down.
Yeah.
Because so a lot of our listeners and people that watch the YouTube follow The Bachelor because I talk about The Bachelor, I do recaps. We use the Bachelor franchise as a way to kind of pick apart human dynamics in the sense that everyone who watches knows the sort of who we're talking about. So it's like having a common denominator. So a couple of years ago, the Bachelorette was a girl named Becca. She chose a guy named Garrett. They fell in love. They started dating and they got engaged, this and that. Well, they just broke up. And it's political to an extent, and I want to get your opinion on it. So I think she's from Minnesota and he's from Michigan. I could have it wrong, but it's that type of he kind of is a Blue Lives Matter kind of guy, and sort of would defend people that probably don't need defending, and she would get shamed by the followers to be like, are you putting up with this? And another Bachelorette named Rachel was the first Black Bachelorette. I don't know if you follow any of this. I don't want to batch-splain this to you.
Batch-splain it because I am batch ignorant.
But you have batching. Well, here's your batch 101.
I don't know batch from a hole in the ground.
So Rachel Lindsay is a lawyer, and she is the first Black Bachelorette, and she's kind of got a lot of weight on her shoulders to be like, Becca, you can't be with this guy who's gonna just like try to silence these other movements and try to make an All Lives Matter comment when we're trying to make a Black Lives Matter. So the question I have is, are we past a society where you can date and marry somebody who has, vastly different political beliefs? It used to be.
Yeah.
Listen, there's a difference between having differing political beliefs, like, oh, I want my taxpayers' dollars to be spent on this and I want it to be spent on that. There's a difference between having like different political ideas about things that don't harm people. And so if you have different political ideas around things like who is deserving of health care, should kids be kept in cages, should Black people be allowed to be killed by police indiscriminately, then I can understand why it's not going to work.
Well, Dave, let me ask you this, because sometimes as a lawyer, right, you got to take the side of something you might not initially agree on or argue for the sake of arguing. Could you defend somebody who's like strictly a Blue Lives Matter person? They're flying
defend them how?
Well, just like, because for me, I'm someone who could go, all right, well, maybe he's not the smartest guy. Maybe he comes from a cop family. Maybe he sees that most cops are good. But just like all lives do matter, we know that all lives do matter. There's a political thing when you say all lives matter that you're taking a side that's like that's away from the movement of Black Lives Matter.
Yeah.
So Blue Lives Matter, I don't know. I mean, I don't know this guy Garrett from a hole in the wall, but he's a camo wearing kind of dude who might be a low IQ, happy-go-lucky guy who's trying to defend his uncle who's a decent guy. Like, you know what I mean? So I wonder is there a way to accept someone's political beliefs if you know that they're just not there yet, but they're a good person?
Yeah. So that becomes, I guess, like you're just kind of tolerating someone. And I mean, and to like, it's really difficult. And Tasha, like what you were saying resonates perfectly. And in fact, there's a James Baldwin quote. I'm going to probably get it wrong, but it basically is like, we can agree to disagree, except where our disagreement is rooted in my right to exist, and, as one of the most amazing American intellectuals, of all time, like he had so much to be able to like say and enlighten, and he gets really to the heart of what I also think you said very clearly, that a lot of our disagreements now, they are fundamentally about, what rights we're all entitled to, how we're
equality,
how we're allowed to be seen and treated by society and by our peers. And so in some ways, and we've all had, I feel like, where everybody could kind of resonate with is you have those relatives. It's like you've got that grandma, you've got that grandpa,
you've got those friends on Facebook.
Yeah,
I'm just like I'm so close to the unfriend button.
Somebody. No, it's like you can usually ditch that person, but it's like if it's somebody who's like, okay, this person's going to be at Thanksgiving and Christmas, or at Hanukkah or Kwanzaa, or just where like at they have to be at my graduation from, like high school. Otherwise, it's like they are going to throw
It's going to be drama in the family when I don't invite them to the wedding.
Exactly.
Yeah.
No. And those are always the kind of moments where it's like we all have to do what we can while simultaneously having compassion for ourselves. And that's where it's...
And having compassion for them too. I think that's the tough part. And when you ask this question, it just kind of makes me feel sad. It's like a response that happens in my chest because I realize that not a lot of people are ready to take a deeper look at stuff. Not a lot of people are ready to stretch their minds and have their beliefs challenged.
Well, Tasha, do you think that this guy, just using them as an example, do you think that without the pressures of society, without the pressures of like their little fame that they have, do you think he could have come around and been introduced and actually joined a good platform if it wasn't for people saying, you liked the photo of the guy throwing the Hispanic baby over the wall? Like it was like memes like that. Like he would like the sort of like what
people are hyper-analyzing all of his like
so people go this guy and he goes, well, what'd you expect? You just picked this guy up out of a deer hunt rally.
Yeah.
Or, I don't know if that's something. But it's like, what did you expect this guy to be? Like, we all have the same genetics, right? And it's just like these are imprints he grew up with.
Where you come from informs a lot of who you become, right? If you don't leave your hometown, if you're always in your same sort of bubble, those beliefs in your bubble are going to inform your beliefs.
So was there a case study that was missed where he could have graduated to a position of going, you know what? All lives do matter, but I understand the point here, and that's why I'm willing to put that aside. Like, yes, cops matter. We don't want cops being killed, but I understand that this is more about the unnecessarily killing of black youth.
Okay, so for blue, like just to jump in quickly, blue lives don't exist. All right, and so that's one of those things it inflames an argument when somebody misappropriates a slogan or an argument like that. And
they literally commandeered it for the purpose of inflaming.
Exactly.
And I'm with you on that. No.
And it's like, no, because you get to take off your uniform, whether you're white, black, whatever. If you're a police officer, one, you chose to put on the uniform. And then two, every day when you go home or when you go out or when you go out, whenever you want, you get to take it off. And you're no longer a blue life, And
yeah, when you show up to the neighborhood barbecue, maybe nobody knows you're a cop because you're wearing your street clothes.
Yeah, but they got the mustache still. You can't just grow a mustache. It's taking me 2 months to grow a mustache.
Maybe you're a plumber.
We went to a Plumbers Matter. We went to a friend's wedding last year, and to Josh's wedding, and some of the people at our table, we really got to know them. Tasha got to meet a bunch of my fraternity brothers. They really are great guys. And I introduced my roommate to his wife, and they're Blue Lives Matter people, and they are great people. They live in a suburb in Massachusetts. They're great people. So I empathize with knowing that like you're not there, but it's not the denominator's not common yet. You can't do the math until you have a common denominator. So you're arguing a very common sense point that blue lives don't matter because you're not a fucking Smurf. You're a cop, and that does matter, but you're not
your job.
So I understand that, but they're not arguing on that point, so it's almost like we haven't got to the point with everyone where we're on the common denominator.
Here's the thing. They're just misunderstanding a movement and being cool with misunderstanding.
Or being defensive.
But I think the point is that I'm not sure if I know exactly what you were asking, but I think you were saying is there a way in which it would have been better off if people weren't so hard on him publicly? And everyone's on their own timeline. Sometimes people need to be jolted a little bit. Sometimes a gentle shake or a gentle reminder or a like, hey, listen, from, I don't know, somebody else in the Bachelor universe. I'm your friend, but I just want to let you know that like what you are saying and what you're posting and liking is problematic because XYZ.
And that's
sometimes
for sure
it's
happens.
Simple and easy, and sometimes it's not.
The male ego can be very fragile. So if
all ego, yeah,
yeah, all egos matter. But, by the way, I want to thank you, Dave Luna, over here for these amazing beverages you've provided. But 7.7% alcohol. What the fuck? Are we solving the world's issues or what? What is happening? Where'd you get these things?
Thoughts.
Vons?
Brought to you by
Oh.
your local Vons.
You could have told me you
Dave,
just
okay,
came home from Berlin and I would have believed
I was a Vons person, and Dave just decided he didn't like Vons anymore and now wants to go to Ralph's all the time, but Ralph's has been letting him down tremendously on every grocery run, so I'm going to convince you to go back to Vons.
Ralph's has the self-checkout, which I used to hate, but I don't like to wait 38 minutes to to go buy some bananas.
This Vons has a real issue with not having enough.
I know the
checkers at
QR
check
codes
stands.
of avocados. I'm weighing things. Them really making me work. I basically work at Ralph's at this point. But no, so I know we're all over the place.
Okay.
Pop an Adderall and follow along, folks. Get with it.
Yeah, come on.
And we always have you over when we go past sunset. What's happening here?
No, well, this another amazing sunset. But okay, so I have a question. Like, are you getting at, because I actually just had an old high school friend reach out. Are you getting at, like, are these good people still? Like, can I defend them as good people? Because I had an old high school friend basically reach out, and she's talking about, she was saying she has friends who are going to vote for Biden. Like, she and her husband used to be Republican, and then basically when Trump was nominated, they were like, okay, this is a deal breaker. Like, we cannot possibly vote for this guy. And I think they left the party, like registered independent. And this time around, she's like, obviously cannot vote for him, but I'm just not sure about Biden. And of course, in my head, I'm like,
Shit
like-
sandwich or roast beef. I don't
yeah, no,
know.
exactly. Shit sandwich or something that won't make you sick or kill you. Or, but she said, I have lots of friends who are good people who are going to vote for Biden. I have lots of good friends who are good people who are going to vote for Trump. And I wrote back and I said, do you really are they really good people if they're going to vote for Trump? Because this is something I've been struggling with, and it's a difficult thing where I start to think back with all the parallels to like other times, we're not there, we're not at peak Nazi Germany, but we definitely, the parallels to early days are so similar. And so it starts to really beg the question, like, okay, well,
It's a slippery slope.
if
Nobody
you were
sees
just
it
working
happening
at a bakery,
incrementally.
like if you were just a baker, like in Berlin back in like 1940, and you were like, I don't really like what's going on, but it's like, I'm also not really going to object to everything. Like, are you a shit person? Like, and
It's a great way to look at it, and you have to compare it.
Yeah, it's like in hindsight, we're like, well, yes, or
In
like,
hindsight, do those people look back and think, man, I f***ed up?
or for example, let's say, our parents, growing up in the 1960s, it's like, let's say we had parents who were in Alabama, or Mississippi when they're integrating schools, and they were kids, and their parents were like out screaming about the forced integration of the schools. Like they were those people in the streets. And it's like, and then our parents maybe went along with it. Now, if you're a kid, okay, it's like, I can totally understand and make an argument that you don't know what you're doing. But at what point do we finally just say like, no, like,
If you do the math on that, some of those young women holding signs and screaming at little black girl walking into the school, they're alive.
they're
They're grandmas.
Absolutely.
So can I answer this?
Yes, please.
So Tasha and I talk about this all the time. She'll be like, oh, so-and-so in your family. She'll see a Facebook post before I do and be like, watch out. like Facebook knows, like, send this shit to Tasha. She won't even respond, but she'll look at it long enough that Facebook's like, oh, she's got an opinion. Tasha's got an opinion. And I'll say this, parents, my stepdad, right? He would give his life for me. He would do anything. He does it for strangers. He's a Catholic. He helps anybody. His company. He's had years in recessions where he's losing money and he's never fired somebody. He's had people steal from him and he still tries to find them work. All of that. He doesn't possess the emotional, or maybe not as emotional, but he doesn't possess the intelligence to see through the fear bullshit that the media gives him. So he is on, I believe, the wrong side of things. So and he is I'm not, Solid doesn't do him justice. He has been a lifesaver for my whole family. he has done so much good for so many people that he will go down as, he is the core catalyst to who I am today. When I was growing up as a quiet guy with a single mom, that all of a sudden he could brighten the room and know everybody, but he's just got the AM radio station on the wrong channel.
And I think that this is the only point I've gotten to is, and this maybe goes back to what you said earlier to tie it into like kind of when you're woke, like, it's you're there. And these people we will all be judged by our actions. We will all be judged by everything we do, both contemporaneously and by people we've never met, who will just hear of our actions from people we know now. And to the extent we can, we need to, when we can see that there are these wrongs out there and that people are wrong, no matter how good they may be to us, no matter how good they may be to other people we love, and if they are just fundamentally wrong, if we are not speaking some truth to that and standing in opposition to that, then we are
complicit.
Yes.
It's our responsibility. And as, carrying that burden of responsibility, we have to be able to discern which approach is going to be best in this situation. And you're
Great
not
point.
always going to be successful, right? You're not going to convert everyone that you talk to, but I do think you have to be brave enough to have a tough conversation from
Yes.
time to time. And this is not like, none of us feel contempt towards these people, right? Like, we have compassion for these people, knowing that
It's
they're
tragic.
older.
I think you said tragic or something
Yeah.
that's similar to that before.
It's just sad. It hurts inside
Yes,
because
it does.
you know that these people are this way, not necessarily by any fault of their own. No one taught them how to understand social media. No one taught them how to be able to discern between what's a real news site and what's a knockoff news site.
When you grew up and anything that was on TV was trustworthy. There were 3 networks, and if Tom Brokaw told you something, damn it was trustworthy. And if it wasn't, that would be a story on the front page
National
of the
news.
newspaper.
Yeah.
Tasha had a great way of describing OAN network as it was like an eagle coming on the American flag or something. It was just like a patriot I don't know. But it's some people don't check the URL and they don't realize it's a dot.
And some people mistake production quality for veracity, for trustworthiness. Whereas it's and once upon a when, the production quality of something actually did mean that there was enough money behind it that maybe fundamentally you could think this is trustworthy.
But not anymore.
Yep.
Because we know for a fact that the Russians put lots of money into making things look
Fox
legit.
News pays.
Yeah, they got a great Adobe. They got a really great Photoshop skills.
This was a high level production. They were not cutting corners, right? Fox News. You're absolutely right.
But you've got
Well, and I have, for me, what's weird for me is my family, I feel like most Americans now, and it's interesting, part of the discussion about all this, I feel like must reflect in some way the fact that our society is getting more interactive through social media, etc. People are coming into more contact with other people, and it's and so therefore there are more of these situations.
These uncomfortable situations where
Exactly.
people's belief systems are being challenged.
Exactly, which is a beautiful thing in a lot of ways, is
But
a
growth
necessary thing.
hurts, right?
Yes.
That's why they call them growing pains. This is challenging stuff.
Exactly. And so it's one of those things, in a healthy society, we would keep facilitating this. I personally think we should actually have some sort of, public service plan where we send, if you want to go to college for free, great. Do 2 years of service. We're going to send you around the country, or maybe you do 6 months, here, and then maybe 6 months abroad. Screw it. But that way you get to meet a ton of people that are nothing like where you grew up, and
that's a great idea.
but it would give people this sense of like, one, the local people who aren't going anywhere would start to see other Americans just coming through who are only there to help their community, and anyway, I mean, but the idea though is it's like we need to keep facilitating this. And of course it's, everything I've read is it's the silos, these siloizations or whatever you want to say, the segregation basically of people into their own little thought groups, which is also what's really dangerous about
the algorithms.
The algorithms, and also like, with YouTube and all these different websites, and where suddenly it's like, oh, I can now pick the news that just makes me feel good about my beliefs.
Or right.
Yes.
Or justified.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. And I mean, for me, I grew up with, my whole family's basically Democrats. It's like running the range from, moderate. My dad was like an independent. Like I have vague recollections of him liking Ross Perot. And God, I hope he wouldn't have liked Trump, but I don't know. But when he and I lost touch with him, he ended up moving to back to upstate New York where he grew up. And I literally found out just by a Facebook message, this woman that he was renting a room from, she and her husband had this house. He's renting this basement room from them and was good friends with them. And he's an alcoholic. He basically drank himself to death. I get a Facebook message. Are you related to Carl Luno? And within hours, I'm on a plane to, Syracuse, and he's not conscious, but he's alive in the hospital. And I'm at least with him for his last, hours. And she had reached out, and she was a good friend to him. And she was a good person, and her husband was a good person. And she gets all of her news. They both get all of their news from Fox. They both get all of their information from like random memes that are coming across on Facebook. And so I met her under circumstances where it was like fundamentally, it's like I could not question in any way like her qualifications as just a fantastic human being. Like she cared for my father when he's a case that most people would say is beyond compassion, or at least unworthy of great effort. And yet, like just recently, and so it started early on, like when I would see her just sharing things that were like patently inflammatory or false or anything else, like I would push back on Facebook, and I would try to, take some pains to be at least like
gentle. Yeah,
more gentle earlier. And of course, with time, when she would just keep doing it, and then, at a certain point, it's like, what the hell? Like, what the hell? Especially because it's just on Facebook. We're not sitting across from each other. And that's like where it ended up getting like really rough. And then finally, like she was posting one other thing, and I had to just say like, this is false. Like, please just use Google. Like you could really just know that this is absolutely false just by Googling it. And on one of these threads, she said, it feels true to me. And that's for her was absolutely the most important thing, is it's like, it made her feel good and consistent with how she looked at the world. And I literally, like in one of my comments was like, why do you seem to want to hate me and other people like me on my side of the spectrum? And also her and her husband, like former union, her husband actually is still current union, like Rust Belt, Syracuse like area. And just basically like people who really paid their dues and who I think feel fundamentally betrayed by the Democratic Party in a lot of ways, who were Democrats back in the day. They're the stereotype of what I feel like we're told all Republican supporters are, where, most of them aren't. But and honestly just don't have, diverse enough like life experiences or circles of friends. And so finally she literally unfriended me, like when I pushed back on one thing, like the umpteenth thing, the 1000th thing.
Yeah.
It felt true to her.
No, and it absolutely did. No, and she sent me a text where she was suddenly, it was like all caps screaming about like, I've unfriended you and go be with your terrorists in Antifa. And just, and she literally and fundamentally in her head the vision of what she thinks reality is. And this circles back to what we were talking about at the very beginning, where it's like, how people see things and how people are getting their information and what our visions of reality are. As she sees the world, it's like the way she's going to make decisions is fundamentally a danger to all of society. Because
she doesn't want to type it on Google. She doesn't want to confirm that her news source is real. Yeah. She doesn't.
Well,
but she might not have the resources. Like, yes, the resources exist for her to type into Google, but she might not have the resources within herself to do investigative search.
Well, but also it's like, and at a certain point, my question is, it's like, okay, at what point do we just, every human being is redeemable, but it's like, at least for the short term, it's like if she's acting like if somebody was so high on drugs that they thought every person around them was like, some sort of mutant or alien that was trying to, kill them.
Then they're a danger to society.
Exactly.
The police will come and they arrest the guy who's waving around an axe.
Exactly. And so it's like at a certain point, like what's really scary about this is where we get our vision of society, where we get our information, where we get grounded in reality to the point that we're able to take action can be something that ends up, making us, by a lot of definitions, like clinically insane almost, where it's like we're perceiving things that don't actually exist and we're reacting to those things. And so therefore, in a way that then puts the rest of society in serious danger. And regardless of, it's like, okay, you are a danger to yourself and other people right now. And without making a judgment of, you being a horrible person, we need to at least say you are a danger to everybody and you need to not have power.
Right.
And
then you need to not be deciding who has power.
So
then you get into should everyone have the right to vote, which is a really interesting conversation
which of course
we've had.
Yes. But also
I would disagree.
Okay, well,
lots of smart people would disagree.
We're gonna go till sunrise.
No, please. Let us.
I do want to say this: that it means so much to me to hear you talk to this person and feel like you've failed communicating to them, because all we do on this podcast is talk about effective communicating. And talking to my mom, my stepdad, people that are very close to me. And I go, Facebook, you can't always, communicate. We went home 6 weeks ago, and I was in the room with a cup of coffee, and I couldn't communicate. And I had to realize they're not changing someone else's vote. They're choosing something that they believe in over maybe their son's opinion on things. I come in from California. I've got this bias thing, but I was the same way in New York and Boston, and and my sister's got a closed-minded. They've got sort of a view that, like I said, they've punched into this AM radio station, and that's what's on the dial. They turn the car on, and that's the news they get, and that's where they're at. So they're great people. They've overcome so much. They've learned a lot, but I need to realize the progress. If like a progressive should worry about the new people. I have a 17-year-old brother, and I wanted to talk to him about what he thinks and where he wants to go with life versus someone who's 60, because you have to realize you only have so much bandwidth, and sometimes the investment is better spent on the youth versus the outgoing, and they just can't change thoughts that are ingrained into them.
While it's true that they're, this is their own vote or whatever, and they're not influencing other people, whatnot. There are many others like them, and as a collective, they can do harm. And but here's the important thing that I think we kind of missed that I don't want to gloss over, is that this is why we need compassion for these people, because it's not them, they've been brainwashed, right? Like by fake news or like a very biased media like Fox or something.
If it bleeds, it leads.
Well, I posted something on my Facebook recently. I mentioned it once on the podcast before about like, where do you drop your parents off for deprogramming like they used to do back in the day for cults? Because that was a thing. And I do kind of think that like we sort of, as a collective, as a society, need some
like a summer camp.
like we need some deprogramming. Can we just like press the reset, do a hard reset?
Today's archery and social democracy.
Totally.
But you know, I don't know. It's hard when somebody's so entrenched in their beliefs. They've been spoon fed. I mean, all of this stuff, it really is designed to just like reinforce your beliefs in a way that a cult would. And so, you know, I want to have compassion for people who you know, aren't able to dig themselves out of that hole. And like we try to leave little breadcrumbs and say, hey, reminder, you know, you can do a quick media bias check on Google and see if this site that you're posting from is right-leaning or left-leaning. Well, just nothing. You can't trust anything these days. Well, but you can do a little research.
It feels true, though.
But it feels true.
Yeah, no, and the whole you can't trust anything is kind of also...
It's
like
a cop-out.
And from back in the beginning where it's like, no, 100%, that's a cop-out. It's like, if one thing is like wrong, you know, like 50% of the time, the other thing's wrong like 0.1% of the time. It's
There's
like,
a big difference there.
And yeah, what's I think the toughest thing to balance is accountability with compassion. Where it's like, okay, at a certain point, it's like, yeah, I have to hold you accountable for how you're being, because if I let you slide, I'm betraying all of the people in my life that you are trying to marginalize, and not like, you know, necessarily because you're, you know, for all the compassion I can give, it's like you're a sick person, you know, but you're still doing stuff that's going to hurt all of these other people in my life, if not, you know, and by proxy, if not directly, like me, myself. And so there will need to be an accountability there. And at some fundamental point, it's like there's, you know, those conversations, you know, have to happen. But yeah, there needs to be a rapport in order to even be able to start to breach.
Begin.
Yeah.
Now it's gonna kind of sound, it's gonna sound weird, but it's like they tell people if you're being sexually assaulted to start like listing off facts about yourself and like humanize yourself. They tell you like say like you know, like I'm on the, you know, lacrosse team. You know, they tell you to literally say, like talk to somebody so they realize that you're a fucking human and not just a piece of flesh. And that's kind of like what you're talking about when it comes to like humanizing people and realizing that like, look, I with my, you know, with my sister who's kind of posted about some, you know, decisions that are, you know, would affect, you know, they were like, she posted something that was like, look, regardless of who wins, we should all just try to love each other. And it's like, no, I've got friends that that the Supreme Court will strip away their rights, and they're, you know, the gay, and there's certain people that like literally can't benefit from the privilege that you have that says like, let's all just be friends no matter what. And so it's important to like bring, like you said, bring people information that's like, hey, I've got a buddy, like, you know, who's trans, or I've got this or that, and you kind of take your world into theirs and kind of be like, hey, you deal with it, because look, it's not just as simple as we're all just going to get along. There's a lot of people that aren't like us that have a lot at stake when it comes to all of this.
This is a sidebar. Let's think of with a little bit of optimism. This time last year, I knew Donald Trump was going to win. I knew it. I didn't want to believe it, but in
4 years ago.
Yes, 4 years ago. Sorry, last election cycle. Yeah. You were a little late. 3 years.
Tasha elects him every year.
No, no. 4 years ago, in the run up to the election, I knew Donald Trump was going to win.
You did?
I told you this 1,000 times. I didn't want to believe it. I had hope that he wouldn't, but I really thought there was a good possibility that we were going to have a President Donald Trump. This time around, I'm starting to feel a little more optimistic. I'm starting to feel like, I don't know. I don't want to jinx it, but I'm a little bit excited. And what I've been seeing in these past couple of days is high-level Republicans jumping ship. You were talking about
Chief of Staff.
You were talking about accountability, and all of the sudden we have a lot of, you know, Republican senators or whoever distancing themselves from this sinking ship a little bit. And And I wonder, will they face accountability? Right?
Probably not.
Probably not.
But they should. And this is one of the toughest things for us, and one of the reasons why we repeat so many of these
Mistakes.
Yeah, just death spirals, is because the coordinated money is on one side, and as long as what they'll do is the faces will fall away in shame, and then, potentially 10 years from now or 12 years from now, people are going to be like, oh, remember Donald Trump? I long for the days of that dignified statesman, like they do with George W. Bush now.
You can understand when you're comparing the two, you're like, well, that seems like a freaking dream.
No,
right?
Exactly. And that's what's so terrifying about it, is that our memory is very short, and our knowledge of things as they're happening is typically very superficial in this country. And so in order to hold somebody to account, you need to undo both those things. You need to have a longer memory and deeper knowledge of things. And so we're in I hope that we can have organizations that are going to do a better job of trying to hold people to account. Because for far too long, we've had way too many of the same people that are just one or two layers behind the scenes, pushing a lot of the same things. And especially the entire Republican Party, what's really scary is they align behind Trump so completely. I mean, that even when Justin Amash, who was Republican at the time in the House of Representatives, said, you know what, I've reviewed the evidence, he should be impeached. They forced him out of the party. He's independent now, and I admire the guy. And even Mitt Romney is the closest thing to a pariah they have. And he voted to impeach just on one of the two counts, not even on both of them. And it's something that, because if we had more than two parties, we'd have a more robust and resilient system. But
Absolutely.
We don't. And so we need to, within the parties, have more accountability. Now, on the Democratic side, we are finally having some good accountability and some really good infighting happening, where the left, where we have the squad, AOC and everybody else, finally fighting and pushing back and taking power. And we have a healthy, robust reckoning happening in that party. There's no signs whatsoever of that happening in the GOP. So hopefully it will. Hopefully they get so completely annihilated in this election that from the ashes, some new ideas and people will finally, rise. But if it's just the same retreads, supported by all the same people and puppeting the same ideas, then they should basically be held to the same standard as if they're, the same, the current people who are in office. And it's you need to show how you're a clean break. Otherwise, nobody should be voting that way for a very long time.
Well, speaking of coming from the ashes, this episode has to end.
Yes, it does.
I've never had this happen.
It is so dark.
I've never had this happen before, but all three cameras have shut off. We still have audio, which is the important part. But even the audio just sent me an alert. I have the Rodecaster Pro. We bought this the week the pandemic started. I've never known this to happen, but even the Rodecaster Pro said you are running out of space.
It's getting full.
Look at that. It says there's 13 minutes left that we can talk. So let's just end this.
Yeah.
You don't want to just go for it?
I've never. It literally said you're
recording.
It said you're running out of space. Shut up. Wrap it up, Dave.
Okay, so very, very, very quickly. Okay, Prop 14, I would lean no, but do whatever you want. Prop 15, go yes. Prop 16, go yes. 17, yes. 18, yes. 19, 20, no. 21, yes. That's a rent control one. We need more rent control in California to help everybody out. Okay, 22, no. Fuck that. It's anti-worker. That's the Lyft and Uber one where they've paid $250 million on the other side.
Yes,
to try
please.
and pass
Let's
it.
reiterate. No
Right.
on 22.
No on 22. Okay, 23. Basically whatever you want to vote, but I'm a no on it. 24, soft yes, that's the privacy, internet privacy one. And then 25, oh God, what was 25?
You want to look it up real
all
quick?
that wonderful momentum.
That was great.
I was
that was
rattling
amazing.
that shit
Yeah,
off.
no,
I got
good
through a lot
job.
of them.
Hold on, I'll look up
Dave,
25.
Dave, let me ask you this: what's it going to take for you to run for office?
Oh,
Is
that's
this
a good
something you think
question.
about?
I do on occasion. Like basically, it would take a situation where I thought that I could make a contribution that the people in there can't, and I'm actually incredibly lucky and blessed, like with where I'm at, that the people running for offices are really good and they're diverse. I mean, honestly, like as a white guy, like I ran for California assembly delegate for the Democratic Party 3 years ago, 3 and change. And there was a woman who came up to me at one point and I was asking her for a vote. And this is just like where you get to help decide the state party platform. And she said, well, I'm going to vote for, diverse candidates if I can. And you know what? And I had to just like respect the hell out of that simply because like we are in a place, part of me wants to move somewhere, where it's more white, where being white and being white maybe is almost more of a prerequisite in order to get people to just fundamentally trust you and throw you their vote. I feel really good that we live in a place where all of the immense talent that has been completely untapped and excluded from the halls of power is finally really getting a chance to contribute and shine and serve, and because we're talking like this is fundamentally a public service that people are doing. And so for me, maybe a change of scenery or if there was like just the right opportunity, I would absolutely like look into it. But on the whole, we have so many amazing candidates and people running. Nitya, who's running in, I think, actually your city council district.
We've been getting flyers for her.
She's running against David Ryu.
Yes.
And yeah, she is fantastic. She is absolutely she would be probably the most progressive and original and independent voice that the city council has seen in I don't know how long.
I'm glad you just said that because I hadn't done much research. I was probably just going to trust who the progressive voter guide
Tasha
said.
votes woman if she doesn't know any better.
Well,
that's her
and
default.
Do a little
also,
research.
I will say that for judges, that's a great way to go because I will simply say this as an attorney, it kills me in California that we still vote for judges because we don't get enough information
about
democracy doesn't work if people don't know what they're choosing.
Yeah.
It's
you can look up, you can see their rating, you can see blah, 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 but you do not have a lot of information.
Did you look up that prop?
It's the cash bail one.
Oh, yeah, no.
No.
Hard no.
Okay.
And this one, it's a subtle thing because
they're
want
all worded funny.
No, but 25. So 25 would eliminate cash bail statewide, but replace it basically with an algorithm to decide whether or not somebody should be held to await trial, held in jail, or just released on own recognizance, which is what we call it in California when you're just released and trusted to come back to court for your trial. For the rest of California, this could be a vast improvement on the current situation where cash bail, which is just a really immoral practice that needs to be eliminated, it could be an improvement simply to eliminate cash bail. But in Los Angeles County, we have had so much fantastic organizing around this issue and really, really good groups pushing for effective and fair and justice-minded changes that we want to basically wait just a little longer on this issue to then have something better than this algorithm that they want to do. And so it's
that
one of those.
That sounds very like Black Mirror.
No,
right?
And that's unfortunately a lot of the algorithms like Black Mirror is, well written and a good show simply because it reflects so much of what's going on in contemporary society, and then just takes it and it's like, well, what would happen if this just went
turn it up a little bit?
Exactly. Yeah, let's just go a little farther. And so for that, it absolutely, if suddenly a computer is deciding whether or not somebody is a flight risk or not, how many of those, data points that it's, incorporating are something that somebody cannot control because it was where they were born, how they were born, and also
who's
happens to
designing it?
align so much with race. And so they're doing a lot of really good work in Los Angeles County on this. And so from everybody I've talked to, the general consensus is the most cutting edge groups on justice reform, which is pretty much the groups who are pushing this statewide. They're saying, don't do this statewide because then it will limit what we can do locally. If you pass this proposition at the state level, then suddenly LA County can't do something different. And not different as in another version of cash bail, but different as in we don't want to do the algorithm, we want to do a better system. And so they want to say, no, give us a little bit more time. We're going to come up with a better system. And then if we want to go ahead and take that system and apply it to the entire state, great. But this is an untested and unproven algorithm. Let's not go ahead and put this into place on the whole state.
Interesting. Yeah. Wow. Thank you for that assessment.
For all of our California constituents, please thank David Luno. Where can people find you? Is there anything you want to promote?
Just hit me up on Twitter. It's just LOUGHNOT. That's it. That's the whole handle.
Well, will you join us after the election?
Absolutely. Okay, we could talk about either how we're fleeing the country or building the resistance.
Talk about next steps.
Or also, even if Biden wins, we're talking about all of the different ways we have to still push him.
Well, yeah, you've got AOC and trying to push that there'll be no cabinet members that are people that have been donors or
And yes. And that harkens back to just what I was saying. We're on the in the Democratic Party, we're finally having the fight that should have happened a while ago. Which, if we want to talk about it, in so many ways, I feel like what happened was unions were what spoke for the organizations that spoke for the people in America for the longest time, and then as union membership was eroded and declined.
And unions were undermined.
Yes, and the Democratic Party aided in that. Then, suddenly we had this vacuum. And that's when people started hating the Democratic Party. And in a lot of ways, it has a lot to account for. But what has happened in the wake of that is grassroots organizing. And we have so many amazing groups that are really reinvigorating democracy across our entire country in such a beautiful way that it is really cause to be very optimistic about the future, and to really think that there is so much that we can't even see that we're going to be able to accomplish. But thank you guys.
Wow.
What a great way to end.
So optimistic.
I want to end with a few shout outs here. We've got such a great following of people that have been so supportive on our Patreon. That's our membership only community. Patreon, patreon.com/thesap, THESAP. We've got a new Patreon member, Gilbert Galan. He is the producer of Tiger Belly Podcast, the gigantic podcast named Tiger Belly, my former roommate. Nice guy. He joined the $50 a month Patreon.
Thank you, Gilbert.
Give him some handmade soap that we have there. Thank you so much, Gilbert. And of course, Michael in Mexico, we love you. And everyone else that's been a member that has joined, and all of our other listeners. I know we've got our Canadian friends watching up there. We've got Oz and Jen Murphy. And in Georgia, we have Deirdre. And we've got a ton of people in Florida. God damn, we love you guys so much. And in England.
Please vote in Florida. Okay, tomorrow's the first day of voting in Florida.
Tomorrow's the first day of voting in Florida.
October 19th, first day of voting. By the time this is public, it's going to be.
And I love that I've never seen this before, but it literally says 1 minute left on the memory card here, and I got to clear my memory. But then in England, we have Asma. Thank you so much for being so supportive, Dan. We appreciate all of you guys so much. So thank you so much for sticking with us. And again, David Luno, come back after the election. And of course, Tasha Courtney, as always, I love your opinions on everything we talk about. That was the episode. Bye, everybody. In the dark. That was great, guys.
That's exciting.
I've never had this thing. I've never had it. It literally shut up and was like. That's what